Welcome to the Modern Couples podcast, Love, Purpose, Growth. I am Marcella, relationship coach, founder of Modern Couples, and fitness and biohacking enthusiast. My TEDx talk and Modern Couples Summit has inspired thousands of people to invest into their relationship skills. Over the past years, I worked with entrepreneurs, ambitious leaders, power couples, and high performers to 10x their love. In this podcast, each episode brings you pioneering strategies and raw conversations to support you navigate the complexities of future fit relating. If you're ready to 10x your love life, let's connect. Because when your relationship thrives, your whole life expands. Links to my current offers are in the show notes. Now, listen up, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Let's dive into today's episode. Today's guest is the author of one of my most recommended books to clients and friends. The book is called The Masculine in Relationships, and my guest is GS Youngblood, who helps men repair their relationships by building their masculine core. He does this using the principles of relational masculinity, which is the capacity to be grounded in your own power while still being relational with your feminine partner. GS, welcome to the Modern Couples Sofa.
Yeah, thank you, Marcella.
Good to have you here.
Yeah.
To arrive in the here and now, I would like to know, how are you really in the sense of what is alive in you today?
What's alive in me today? I am putting out a new program, and I'm in the midst of beta testing it right now. So I'm excited about my work, and I'm also a little frazzled because it's something new. It's the creative aspect of my work, and I love it. It's also painful.
Love it and also painful. Yeah. I would like to dive in with you into the world of men's work today. And when I prepared for this interview, I noticed how I felt nervous around asking you questions, creating this space, because in a sense, and I've had that from past interviews as well, I am creating a frame or a space for us to have a conversation. But when I really have a strong masculine on the other side, I actually, feel like, where is my place in this conversation? So you asked me up front, how do we balance the conversation here? And I'm really just so happy to have you here and talk about the work that you do. So I will see where I can ask questions, but also I'm really happy if you find the answers to questions men might ask. Yeah, it was an interesting preparation.
I bet.
So in your words, what would you say is man's work, and why do we need man's work?
Yeah, it's we as a society are trying to figure out who we are and how we want to be to each other, and I think in between men and women, there's this dance of the masculine and the feminine. And as we talk about masculine and feminine, these are energies, so we can step out of this like gender and non-binary, like we can step out of all that. There's just two energies in the world that are somewhat inarguable: masculine energy and feminine energy. It doesn't matter, and all genders manifest some mix of those two. And we had a lot of history, thousands of years of masculine, male dominated dynamic. And I'd say in the last 30, 40, 50 years, that started to shift. There's been kind of an overswing in a lot of ways with men. We're so scared. We don't want to do the wrong thing. And so we emasculated ourselves in some ways. We became scared to be bold and to lead and to embody a lot of the qualities that actually created a lot of greatness in a lot of men. And so men's work is, okay, how do we take both of these extremes and try to avoid those, but come to a point where we can actually embody our own groundedness, our own power, and be relational, which means uh, paying attention to the impact we have on others, paying attention to the connection we have with others, and in intimacy where you have a couple, presumably somebody who wants to be in their masculine and presumably somebody who wants to be in their feminine, and they're together. Um, how do you be with each other? In this case, how can the masculine being relate to his feminine identified being? And that's what men's work is about. So we work on being grounded and powerful and decisive and directional. And the kind of work that I do, I add in the relational piece. And I think I'm not the only person doing that, but there's a lot of men's work that's just about finding your purpose and being more powerful and being with other men and sharpening each other up. But sometimes it misses the relational aspects, and that's central to my work. And that's why I speak of relational masculinity as the kind of the flavor of work that I do. It's masculine, it's powerful, it's directional, and it's relational. Because here's the thing. If you're a guy in relationship and you just do kind of the alpha dog stuff, and you're with a woman that is strong, that is not going to work. It is not going to work. And that's where I see a lot of the shortcomings of some of the men's work out there. Is it's just not going to work when you're in a real relationship. So let's focus on that, so we can help couples stay together. We can help families stay together. So that's kind of the big picture of what I'm trying to do through that lens of men's work.
Oh, I love that, and I love that you bring in the strong woman. We have in the summit quite a lot of female entrepreneurs, and they share also what they want in a relationship. But yeah, the kind of the dance between, or for a woman, the nuance to find to be strong and independent, yet also relaxed and let's say open uh, to the masculine. Sometimes it's quite a challenge, especially if he or the masculine pole is still in the development phase. What would you like, especially to the setup of two entrepreneurs or an entrepreneurial woman? How can she be supportive to that work actually, or what dynamic comes up when what is the special dynamic that comes up with a strong woman in that relationship?
Well, oh boy, where do I start on this question? It's part of the problem is we tend to attract our polar opposite. So if you're a masculine man, you're going to tend to attract a woman that's very much in her feminine, because the two poles want to come together. The problem is if really, I'll just say, if a woman stays in her masculine energy all the time, what often happens is she attracts a man who's more in his feminine. Actually, he's a little bit more submissive and more of a follower. That seems easy at first because he's easygoing, she's a strong woman, and so it seems easy to be with him until over time, it starts to get a little old. She starts to actually want him to step up and lead once in a while, but it turns out he reveals himself as not totally capable of that. So almost in the choosing of a mate, if we inhabit a certain pole, masculine or feminine, we tend to attract the opposite, and that's the worst thing. Is if a strong woman who actually secretly yearns to relax at times into somebody else's direction, not all the time, if she secretly yearns for that but chooses a man that's not capable of that, or attracts a man that's not capable of that, then you've got structural flaws in that relationship. Going back to your question specifically, what could a strong woman do to support men's work? It would be give him the opportunity to lead, make space in the relationship for him to step in and lead. Now, you can't make him step in and lead. He's got to want to do that. And if he's doing men's work, then he's probably intrinsically motivated, but it might be a little scary at first for him. Maybe it's a muscle. So I would say the best way to encourage that is to surrender. And it's very easy. If there's a decision to be made and he's kind of waffling a little bit, she could look at him and say, I would like you to lead on this one. And it's a gentle invitation instead of getting kind of disgusted with him and making a cutting remark, or just stepping in and handling it and taking charge yourself. Ask him from your heart, I would like actually you to lead on this one, and I'll follow. And give him the opportunity to take his baby steps in terms of his own masculine leadership. If over time he proves himself incapable of doing that, and then there's a vacuum of leadership, well, that's a different story. And then you need to consider, is this the right relationship? But you can actually foster its initial little green shoots coming out of the ground by inviting him into the masculine role. And then hopefully he grows into it. And then hopefully then you've got a balance between the two of you, of both masculine and feminine energies.
Now, in the business world, the term leadership is quite clear, and for many of us, it's we know different leadership styles, and they are usually not attached to any gender or any polarity. What does it mean to have leadership in a relationship?
Oh, okay. Yeah, leadership in a relationship. It's I talk about three distinct styles of leadership in a relationship. There's logistical leadership, there's emotional leadership, and there's sexual leadership. Now, there's others, but those are kind of the three primary subdomains that I like to talk about, because I like to give guys examples of how they can bring leadership. So let's look at logistical. This is just like getting through life. And I don't know, there's easy examples I can give of this. The easiest one I always give is going out to dinner. Where are we going to eat? So what I do is I look at men. I say, which man are you? Are you number one, the guy that without thinking just looks at his woman and says, hey, where do you want to go for dinner? Without even thinking about like what he wants. He just completely bypasses anything about him and just looks immediately to her. Or are you the guy that says, man, I really feel like sushi tonight. Like that would be good. And then he says, babe, I would love to go to the sushi place. How would that be for you? And he brings some clarity. He's got, this is a trivial example, but there's some clarity about what he wants first. And he brings that to the table, but then he includes her. Leadership is not about we're going to sushi. There's no questions here. It's about bringing your clarity about what your needs are and then including her in the decision-making process. And then together you figure out what the thing to do is. That's the most trivial of example. But, guys can lead in all kinds of ways. Like if you're a guy that maybe for the two of you, like your finances are a little bit in shambles and your investments are not that tight and your budgets, if a guy wants to take leadership in the financial realm, what he could do is sit down, look at the income, create a budget, create a plan for how much they're going to save, what investments they're going to put it in, and bring it to her and say, baby, I've been thinking about our financial picture. This is what I think we should do. So he brings a lot of clarity, but he's going to include her. She's going to have opinions. If you're with a strong woman, she's going to have opinions, and those opinions are often quite good. So you've got to learn to include that, but you can't start that process until you bring your own clarity is my view on things. So those are some examples of leadership in like the logistical realms of life, where you go to eat, how you do your finances, home maintenance, how to discipline the kids. Like there's all the subdomains where we could go through what leadership looks like in the relationship. That's the logistical realm. Now, I'm just going to pause there for a second before I talk about any other
Yeah,
forms
yeah,
of
yeah. I think I like that a lot, and I like the example that you give. I mean, that form of leadership, I think it helps in many relationships, right? To come with an idea or to come with a suggestion, even having it sorted out, and it's much more common in the business world, but also to really take that into a relationship. Now, what I often see is if he does come with what he considers leadership, or I made a decision, or we do that, right? And then she says something, or checks, or checks in. Have you really considered the time? Do you think we can do this? Do you think it like this makes sense? Then I often see how, yeah, he just takes it
yeah,
personal or feels like
yeah,
you're not trusting me. What is happening, and like how can we handle these situations?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's then where the spiral goes downwards.
Yeah, I love that you brought this up. This is the perfect question. What do you do as a guy when you try to lead and you meet some resistance? I think that's kind of a different way to say that question, and it's twofold. One is, guys, if you want to lead, your lead better be competent. So if you're like, hey, we're leaving at 6:15 for dinner, and she's like, well, our reservation's at 6, and we know that it's like a 20-minute drive. So have you thought this through? And it's like,
Mhm.
man, I say, did you think this through? Like, you're not even like taking this responsibility very seriously because you're not thinking through. So I'd say, guys, no woman will ever surrender to you if your lead is not competent, which means you've thought through all the pitfalls and permutations. So you've got to get good at it. And if not, your woman's just going to step up and do it for you. And over time, she's just going to do it more and more automatically. So that's number one. Number two, as a guy, you can't be so identified with this role of like leadership that if any resistance comes up or questioning, is probably a better way to say it, but if any questioning comes up, you just crumble and you just, well, you handle it then, because that's your ego talking. So guys, lead, but don't hold so tightly to think that it's a dictatorship and that things have to happen exactly as you say. Learn to play with it. It's a dance. I mean, you can really learn to appreciate and honor your woman's competence. I have learned to listen to my woman around little things because she thinks through things really well. So what I'll sometimes do is I might set the frame for what we need to do, but I might ask her to like actually suggest a method because she's really good at that. So for me not to recognize that is silly. So I think the second thing is just, guys, just learn to then, don't be so fragile and learn to incorporate and appreciate her input because it's going to be good. If you're with a strong, competent woman, like, don't fight it. If you don't like it, then go find yourself a meek little doormat of a person. But that's not rewarding for anybody, right? It's not rewarding. Like, my woman's fiery, and that's what I love about it. Yeah. So those are I think those are the two responses to that.
Yeah. I feel the ego is one of it's one of the toughest one. It goes so deep of like, I don't know, I'm not good enough. Oftentimes what's coming up,
Yeah.
but to shift that and really also honor that you have this smart woman on your side and to actually come more to the thinking of team, of partnership, and of creating a container for both of you together. I love that. A short interruption to tell you the exciting news of the launch of our new signature program, Love 10X. Ooh, I cannot wait to share more about it. It's designed for ambitious individuals, high performers, entrepreneurs, leaders, purpose-driven singles who want to rewire their brain to 10x their love. You have mastered your business, your career, you are into personal development. But when it comes to love and relating, it just still feels like a risky investment where you don't know how to protect your energy. However, deep down, you feel it's time to find your life partner. It's time for that crack your heart wide open love. So, if you are ready for a conscious, deeply fulfilling approach to love, if you want to upgrade your relationship life, check the show notes and join Love 10X.
You said there was a lot of entrepreneurs. So you're an entrepreneur, you're creating something new. But what you're doing is you're getting rapid market feedback. Is this the right fit for the market? And then hopefully you're making tweaks to change and then get the right fit. Well, it's the same thing. Like, be open to the feedback you get in the moment and do the quick tweaks, and then you're going to have more success. So it's the same principle as an entrepreneur should follow.
I love that. Exactly. Great metaphor.
I've been an entrepreneur.
Let's go let's take this to an even more dynamic stage. So let's talk about conflict. Let's assume conflict is inevitable in a relationship.
Yeah.
What is your core strategy for a man to navigate the world of conflicts with a woman?
Well, what I would say is that most conflict comes about when we don't allow space for the other person's state to come into the picture. What I mean by that for guys, most conflicts arise when the guy tries to deny or dissuade a woman's emotions. She has an emotional expression. She filters it through her mind, so there's like maybe some story and some blame that gets mixed in there. And the guy just looks at the story and is like, nope, that's not right. And so I'm gonna now negate the entire expression, including the emotional part. And,
Mhm.
that tends to make any feminine being feel very unsafe when the man tries to deny what she's expressing, when he tries to talk her out of it through defensiveness and explanations. I mean, that's the story. And I would say most women that leave relationships probably do so because they don't feel heard at all in their relationship. They chronically feel unheard in their relationship. Now, that's a supposition, but I know it's a lot of the reasons why a woman would leave a relationship. And so, guys, if you want to avoid conflict, don't try to do it from within the conflict. Do it before the conflict, which means learn to make space for her emotional expression, because there are two types of expressions. There's informational and there's energetic. And we all know men tend to be at the informational level, and women often express at the energetic level, the emotional level. That they're not the same language. So, you speak up here and I'm down here. It's like we're never going to get each other. So I teach men like how to really decode those emotional expressions, how to be with them, how to make space for them. It doesn't mean that you don't take the blame for things just by hearing her emotional expression and receiving it. Doesn't mean you're going to take the blame for everything. It just means you're actually available to start to achieve what we refer to as like emotional resonance with her in the moment, which tends to co-regulate her nervous system. Then you come down, and then you can have an informational expression. And that's what I teach men to do. Don't try to have the informational expression when you're doing this. Wait till this happens, and you can actually be part of that by coming up here and holding her hand, figuratively speaking, and then you come down, and then you have a different discussion. That's how you deal with conflict before it starts. Like if you're a guy that's got powerful skills of receiving your woman's emotional expression, even when it's intense, you co-regulate a nervous system, come down. Guess what? Your partner is going to be very loyal and devoted to you if you do that over time, because that's the feminine craving to be felt and understood and received, even when it's messy, and that creates a lot of loyalty, love, and connection and devotion. Is when a guy can do that with his feminine partner.
Hmm. I can I can so relate to that. Yes, very often, like a sentence coming up is I don't need any fixing right now. Right, I just want to be heard and felt.
Yeah,
I want to feel understood. And even when you say that, I'm reminded of those moments when I say something and just when it's out there, I know I exaggerated. I know this was not the number. I know this was not,
yeah,
I know it, but the energy has to go out anyways. And it just, I just want to be understood and not be reminded that I'm exaggerating and that this number was right. I just, it's not
yeah,
even the point. There is no greater feeling than just feeling understood without even saying the truth, so to say, right? Like the scientific truth. Just to be
yeah,
received and felt in that moment. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to agree with that. Yeah. I mean, there's so much we could say on this topic. What we're talking about now is really describes the dynamic inside what I call the magic moment. It's like that moment where there's conflict, and you can go down this path or you can go down that path, and one is infinitely preferable to the other. And I really want guys to master this moment when that, like you said, that exaggeration comes out. You're just coping with the immensity of the feelings inside of you that are probably too much to carry in that moment. And so, yeah, some dysfunctional stuff pops out. Um, yeah, I get it. I get it. And so,
Mhm.
if we can teach men
Mhm.
to enter that magic moment and really help co-regulate you, like the world will just be a different place.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's the world would just be a different place. Like I'm interested to also explore. So if I'm a man investing into men's work, taking all these skills really serious, practicing, like I'm not just in a relationship with my woman. I'm also relating to many other people around. Like, what will change for me in my, be it in my business setting, but maybe also with relatives, with family. Like, where does all this that I learn, be it in your training, or where does all this lead to? In the sense, for example, in a business setting or in my team, in my leadership team, I'm not just surrounded by my one woman that I somehow have learned to dance with, but I'm confronted with other men who might not be as strong in their core. how could I show up in those settings, or what is the benefit of doing this work outside of the romantic
Yeah.
relationship?
Well, at its core, what we're doing is we're slowing down with this work. What we're doing is we're slowing ourselves down, kind of slowing our frequency down. And we're grounding our nervous system so that there's not so much like excess energy and lack of capacity. And then we're choosing moment to moment how we want to operate. Like that's at a core what we're doing. Now, when you take that into relationship, great. My nervous system can now handle some of the energy you're going to blast me with, and I can bleed it off because I'm grounded. And
Mm-hmm.
then I am slowing down and having more spaciousness so I can now choose how I want to be with you moment to moment instead of going into immediate reaction where there's no space between stimulus and response. And then I'm a better partner in a relationship. Same thing with any relationship, because remember, everything's relationship. Work is those are relationships. They're just not intimate relationships, right? So it's really the same thing. It's just different. So if I've got somebody at work who's, he's kind of abrasive, and we're in a meeting, maybe we're disagreeing, and it's guy's coming at me like this, my groundedness, instead of like thinking this guy is a real jerk and kind of having a reaction, I can still have that spaciousness inside of me and make space for his kind of flare up. And then I can choose how I want to be with him. And I'm strong enough that I can give him some space to express. It's the same thing. If you're with an employee, maybe they're not going to be getting kind of agitated with you, but you're impacting them, and it's your employees are not robots. It's not like go do this work and carry out your task, and I don't need to know anything else about you. They're human beings, and the most loyal, productive employees are that way when they feel cared for by their boss and they feel understood about their challenges in their life, and there's some space for their challenges. Um, and so a lot of this men's work is about coming into your heart. You're being strong, but you're also coming into your heart so you can actually connect with other people. That's powerful in relationship, in business as well, and even in an employee-employer relationship, or boss and employee. It doesn't mean you become a softie, but you can become somebody that's got clear direction and boundaries and heart, and clear direction and boundaries and a lot of heart as well. And the other thing I'll say around leadership is it perfectly applies to the business world. I think we all get that clarity, having clarity and really structuring other people is it's the prototypical kind of masculine feminine energy. In intimate relationship, you want to have masculine direction and feminine surrender. That's what polarity is. In business, you don't have gender, you don't really have masculine feminine, but you do have a hierarchy. And so it's the same thing. If you have a boss who's really unclear and he's not decisive, and even when he or she, sorry, he or she is decisive, if they don't communicate it with a lot of clarity, then things go awry. So this notion of leadership and clarity perfectly maps over. So anyway, those are some of the thoughts that I have in
Mm-hmm.
that arena.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, thank you for opening that door. And just one thought on that as well, because um, let's say in working with leadership teams, we are very often aiming for sameness, so to say, and at the same time, we are also trying to embrace diversity to create a product that targets to many different areas. But it's an interesting dance of how can we treat everyone equally and at the same time also bring in the differences, or so to say, a dance as well of who leads, or who can give a direction, or who dares even to create a frame potentially for other people to brush against or to edge. So I also like to bring back a little bit of polarity glasses sometimes when I look at business settings, and who dares to be the person that other people can feel themselves, or have something to smash against. It's
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
requires a core, and it requires integrity, and it requires daring to lead, so that other people can say, no, I think this is better, I think that direction might lead somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the reasons I created, well, we haven't mentioned this, but the framework for my first book is the Masculine Blueprint. And so it's this 3-part framework that I consider to be a model for the modern masculine. And what I wanted to do was, I wanted to create something that worked in the modern world. It wasn't about subjugation or misogyny or anything like that. It was, no, what are qualities that a man who wants to be in his masculine, what are the qualities that he can bring that don't infringe on anybody else's sovereignty? We live in the modern world, okay? It's not the 1950s anymore, okay? There's a lot of this. So what is a masculine in this modern environment? The reason I'm saying that is because, yeah, those elements can be brought into the business world as well as the elements of leadership. It doesn't matter what gender or any other attribute you are, doesn't matter. Are you grounded? Is there a level of stillness and groundedness to you that people want to follow? Number two, which is the first element of the blueprint, by the way. Second element of the blueprint is provide structure. So, are you somebody that creates a lot of structure and direction, decision making, forward movement, and are you an ordering force for those around you? Again, doesn't matter what gender or color or nationality. It doesn't matter any of that. And then the third one is create safety. And this is kind of tying in the human element. Do your employees feel safe? And I mean, Google did tons of studies on employee emotional safety. So this is like a real thing in the business world. If you can line those 3 elements up as a leader, you're going to be way more effective. And I want to say, you don't even have to be the leader. You could be rank and file who's leading on a project. And if you bring those qualities to your leadership on just your little project that you're leading, those are the elements of leadership that are going to make you very, very effective.
Oh yes, yes, and very thought after. I maybe also to women listening here, if you find yourself in a facilitator role or at work, leading, for me, it makes a difference if I consciously choose to step into this masculine form of leadership. Okay, right now I'm stepping into creating a frame. And then there are moments when I will actually verbalize and say, look, today I feel like I could need some help bringing in some structure, or I'm more in my creative energy. I can actually feel the different nuances when I'm in that space. And it helps me for my own sanity and for my own inner polarity to express that, and thereby also creating words, vocabulary, language for other people to feel that they don't always have to be just one thing because their title says that, or that they always have to do something in there. We each have these qualities, and sometimes it's nice to hand over and say, has someone else an idea of how to create a structure, or which tool would help today? And it's a beautiful inner dance to become aware of that. I hope you are fully enjoying this episode. I get asked often why to invest in your relationship skills. And I want to share with you 12 scientifically proven benefits of being in a modern couples relationship. Now, did you know that modern couples, hence couples who are in love, do the work that is needed to fully thrive stronger together, are measurably happier, live longer, make more money, are physically healthier, have more sex, have improved mental health, recover faster from illness, cope better with life's problems, travel more, have fewer addictions, and inspire others to greatness. Last but not least, modern couples, those that support each other and sculpture each other into the greatest version of themselves, ultimately make a bigger impact in their family system, in their community, in their businesses, in the way they show up in life. Imagine this was the normal way of how couples around you and within you radiate. If you are an ambitious human aiming for the 12 and more benefits, I'm here to support you to rewire your brain for the 10x kind of love. All information are in the show notes. Now, let's continue the episode.
Yeah, and what you say reminds me of a principle. It's like, let's not get rigid about these roles. Like, I am masculine and I am nothing else. Like, everybody's a mix of masculine and feminine, and you can shift in and out of masculine and feminine if that's what you choose. Like, that's the thing about our modern world. You choose what you want in the free world. So if today you want to be more in your masculine energy and tomorrow you want to be more in your feminine, like, go for it. You can do that. So these things don't have to be rigid. I'll just say, my audience is men in relationship who choose to be in their masculine. So that's why you see a lot of my focus on that. But the truth is, it's all very fluid.
Yes, yes. I like that you are so specific on that. And coming to that, I mean, inviting people to the summit and saying we are exploring a modern zeitgeist. I know there's so many blind spots, and I know there's so many nuances and different flavors of how these things are expressed. So for me, each conversation is always an invitation to get inspiration, but also not to get caught up in one concept and just, prove how this is wrong. It's all an inspiration, and there's so many things that are not addressed here. But what I like about your approach is, and it's similar to what I just said, to diversity of invitations here. You integrate principles from science, psychology, but also, let's say, ancient wisdom, martial arts, or even tango and dance, BDSM. You bring all these principles together in your work. And when I sent out invitations to the summit, also to some of my business clients, they were like, "You're talking to a Mayan priestess? Like, what are we going to learn from her?" Right? And I think it's a quality of modern times, and so to say, when you enter the world of inner work, to really bring in different elements and honor and see yin and yang also happens over time, right? Like some of the ancient wisdom actually helps us for challenges of the future, and to look at that. But how do you bring your work, especially, is your communication different to men that are, let's say, more reluctant to look into the world of spirituality, or something that is esoteric perceived? How do you make it safe for men to enter that world, or what are some of the fears
Mhm.
around
Yeah.
the non-business world,
Yeah.
non-scientific world?
Yeah. Well, I strive to be very practical and very applicable to a regular dude's um, life. I sort of I have a real disdain for people that kind of put on airs and they try to like be super spiritual. Because it doesn't, you can talk about the divine a lot, blah, blah, but the regular guy is just like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, just tell me what to do. So it's not accessible. I don't think it's helpful for men when teachers come and they try to get like overly spiritual. If they're talking to an audience of men who just want to grow into more of their own groundedness and power and be better partners to their women. So I just try to keep things really practical. And I think that's what I've done over the years. And in the book, I think, I get that clear feedback. They're like, oh my gosh, I felt like this talked about my life specifically and was very, very practical. All the examples and exercises and things like that. I actually knew what to do. So that's been my motivation over the years, as I've got to make it
Yeah.
practical. And I hate things that don't don't actually translate to real action. I get real disgusted with them and snarky about it.
Would you say there's a different language, different communication between men and women?
Oh yeah, I would, definitely. But it's just how fast I get there. I mean, when women, I can jump right in. And as soon as I say that women just want to be like felt and heard, like they're all nodding their head, yes, like they immediately know that because they're talking about their own experience. I have to really, work with guys. I have to start with guys from the symptoms. Here's what you're experiencing. Now, let me tell you what's underneath that's causing that has been baffling you for years in your relationship. So we get to the same place, but I have to start at a different end of the tunnel with the guys than I do with women.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. It's also for me when I have a couples coaching, it's an interesting balance of whom do I talk to and what do I say. And I would say I'm also in my body with a feminine or female mind. But it is I love to build those bridges, and I love to try to use different words or to use different metaphors for men and women. Which one thing from some of the past interviews I would like to explore with you. I've had some coaches and trainers here that work specifically with women, And there was a lot about, feminine embodiment in the sense of exploring sexuality and how exploring female sexuality translates into them being more confident, right? It's a journey of discovering the yoni and the womb power and how to bring that into life. When I look at men's work, it's very often, at least I was not in a men's workshop yet, but it's not so much about exploring the lingam and the power of sexuality. What is the difference? And maybe also a little bit you answered it already, but I want to make it explicit. Like, why are we working with women so much on sexuality while you are talking so much not about sexuality when we talk about men's work?
Oh, let's see. How do I answer this? Well, I do talk a lot about sexuality with men, I would say. Um, do you want to hear what I would talk about with men around sexuality? Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
I talk about sexual leadership. There's a lot of guys who are in long-term relationship who their basic posture is to kind of wait for her to be in the mood, in the mood. And they kind of wait for it. And they, the most they might do is they get in bed and the lights go off. And 10 minutes later, he puts his arm over and kind of caresses her a little bit to see if she responds. Like that's as much initiative as he takes. And then she kind of rolls over and then he's like, well, she's not interested. So, but sexual leadership, what I teach guys is, guys, if I'm assuming, I'm talking to most of the guys who are in love or in consensual established relationships. I'm like, guys, you can learn to lead her to her arousal if you know how, and you got to know what it is that stimulates her. So you've got to know how to initiate and get the environmentals right. You've got to know how to touch her body. You've got to know how to stimulate her mind, and you've got to know how to skillfully initiate. And that's all of that is sexual leadership. And then you got to know how to like grow the envelope of your sexuality, so it doesn't just be the same old thing every time. That's sexual leadership. So I teach guys a lot about that. But there's also, there's like what brings a woman to her arousal. And if you're constantly getting defensive with your woman, she's probably going to then chronically get into a state where she's not that interested in sex because her other emotional needs are not being met first. And so, all the work that I do is around opening, meeting his partner's emotional needs, so that then she can get to the point where her body opens to him more. If her heart's not open to him, then her body's not going to be open to him. So I talk all the time about the impact on just like the little arguments that you have and the ways that you try to talk her out of it, how is the reason you're not having any sex. Okay. So it's not her fault. It's the fact that you're not running things such that her heart's open to you. So I talk a lot with guys about that. And then the piece that I also did work with men is bringing a little bit what I call dark energy into the bedroom. And a lot of guys are very nice in the bedroom. And of course you want care, and consent is a given here. But beyond that, you want to care and make sure that she's taken care of in the bedroom, but you don't want it to become one flavor of just like niceness. A lot of the women that I talk to actually want him to bring a little bit of the darker side too. And so I'm working with guys on a little bit of that darker sexual energy. Now, I want to say this is important. Dark sexual energy by itself is not necessarily a good thing by itself, because it can then lead into bad things in the world, sexual abuse, misogyny, and things like that. So by itself, sort of ungoverned. But light by itself is just kind of like nice and gets old after a while. It's when you couple the dark and the light in terms of the sexual energies. To me, that's the magic combination that I think a lot of feminine people want, is the combination of the dark and the light. It's the darkness governed by care. And that's when things can get a little edgy and exciting, but you still know that you're in good hands. And so that's the other piece of sexuality that I work with guys on. And we'll be hosting what I call Leading in the Bedroom workshop later this year in San Francisco, around exactly this. And I have a workshop in Mexico coming up in March, and we're going to touch on this a little bit in the workshop as well. So I do a lot of work with guys around that. So those are all the things that I do around sexuality with men.
Beautiful. And I think it's great to look into some of the taboos, some of the shame topics, and actually also some of the exploring the darker sides for both of them then in the bedroom. And what I notice also in your sharing is it's about creating safety also for both of them, right? It's creating safety for emotions to be part of the sexual journey, and for energy to build up. And so to say, well, I noticed that working with women, it's very much focused on, in a tantric sense, the minus pole, right? The hip, the womb, and opening up and tapping into your own sexuality. While with the man, it's more on their minus pole, which is in the tantric world, the heart, and how to be open, how to be sensitive to the other partner, it feels. And then from there, how do I create sexual sexual experiences that are safe and authentic and deep and creative and always get better over the years. And that's a beautiful journey that both of them go and then come together.
Yeah. Yeah. But I did it better myself.
Yeah. GS, thank you so much for your time here and for your sharings. You mentioned how people can work with you and meet you. Is there anything you would like to say before we end the interview? Anything, any last comments that we did not touch upon?
No, I think we touched a lot on it. I would just say the book is the best place to start with my work and learn about this masculine blueprint that we talked about. Yep, there you go. And then beyond that, check out my website. I've got a workshop coming up in March. I've got a workshop coming up later in the year that I mentioned. And the biggest focus for me right now is my relationship repair boot camp. So this is an 8-week course where you get a video content, you get a cohort of men to go through a whole process with for 8 weeks, and then you get group coaching over 6 months. And so that's my most powerful work to date. And you can see that on my website. So those are some of the ways to access the work.
Most powerful tools, you say. Does it ever stop the work? I mean, you've been in men's work for over a decade. Does it ever stop or not feel like work anymore?
Well, it doesn't feel like work. Feels great to do. And I love the creation part, just every day there's something new to learn, a new principle to codify so men can, you package it up so it's understandable. And that's super fun for me. I love doing that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for everybody listening. Take a moment after this interview, feel into it, write down your aha moment. Thank you for listening to today's episode. You have built success in every other area of your life, but if love still feels like the missing piece, it's time to change that. Love 10x is for high achievers who are ready to create a relationship that matches their ambition, depth, and vision for life. Love 10x gives you the tools, mindset shifts, and strategies to attract and build a relationship that actually works without losing yourself in the process. If that resonates, check the show notes and join Love 10x today. Your future partner is out there. Let's make sure you're ready for them.